Hello? Hello, hello, hello? Is this working all right? I hope so. Hello, everybody. Ah, the good old sound of the Star Fox 64 main menu, dude. Teasing a little bit what we play after Pokemon. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Nobody's watching. Oh my god. One of the few times that nobody is tuning in. Ah, Worldbuilding streams suck, René. Just kidding. Let me get something set up. Give me just a few seconds to open up my own stream because I forgot that. I was dilly-dallying around so much today. So. You know what? I need to be inspired today. It's royalty-free inspiring music. Let's see what happens. Dude, suggestion removed? Why? Let's see what happens in the background now. Let's see how motivated we are. Okay. At the moment, I'm eating. I just need like a moment or two. Oh god. Let me turn that down a bit. Okay, now. Hello, everybody. Now we're officially online. I don't know why that sucked so much at the start, but hey. I think that's like common for me now that my stream starts are scuffed, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. All things considered, it should be bad, but yeah. So let's start with this. So this is part 2, the official part 2. All for everyone who couldn't see the last stream and will never sadly be able to because the stream is gone, got bombed. You're doing a little bit of work building. What's meant by world building? So let's start with the basics. I'm building at the moment a Pathfinder setting. And I said, let's do some of that on stream. Because stream stuff is fun. Content. This is all nice and well and good. However, we need to of course like get a few things in order and stuff like that. So at the moment we're working on the web browser. Last time an oopsie happened, and I showed something that's not, how do I say it, not good for sponsors. While Googling something, let's say like this, while I was Googling something, I Googled orcs. If you remember, if you were there, you know. If you don't worry. I Googled orcs. And since usually I don't give a shit about safe search, I Googled something that was not safe for work on accident. Nothing horrible or something like that. I looked for like orcs, and I was like talking about body diversity or dysmorphia, where like you have like gender dysmorphia, where like a male or a female of a species look significantly different. Mostly found in insects, right? Insects are like one of the main things that have that. where like the female, the queen, is usually huge and has like giant appendages, right? They look like fairly different from the males. Look at it like a queen wasp, right? So I was looking at like the World of Warcraft orcs to show like what I meant with like how that annoys me, how in fantasy it's like orc, hulking man, female orc, basically green human, right? And I looked for female orcs, and one of the pictures was from a very famous site, and the video got nuked, and I will not put that up again. I wanted to edit it and then re-upload it. I may do this, but yeah, while we're here talking about it, like that's the reason why the first VOD is not up anymore. But yes, that's that. Other than that, I'm doing fine. I had like some talks yesterday. And like yesterday was a full day, dude. It's ridiculous what happened yesterday. I went to like a flea market. I think it's like, it's a flea market, even if it's a Trödelmarkt. 1 second, I will look up if it's a flea market. Should be a flea market though. Yeah, like a big flea market. I was there. And I helped a friend sell some stuff. We sold a lot of Pokemon cards, dude. Those things go for high prices, I realized. Even like the newer ones. Jesus Christ. But yeah. And then after that, I watched a few episodes of Digimon with my brother and his girlfriend. Hello. And after that, I talked to another VTuber. That was like crazy. Like, that was a bit bizarre, but yeah, I cannot go into details. Hi, MediBuilder. I'm just quickly like finishing eating, and then we go further in. So today's focus of the stream would be fleshing out a few details of the things we talked about last time. What we wanted to do here on my Notion. And maybe get into like a general outline of the map, right? What I usually do for a campaign is just like, okay, now I just get like the general setting stuff ready, and then I do like, okay, this is like the focal point of this campaign. Sad. Again, sadly, the stream from last time is not there anymore, so I will not refer to it too much. We just did some general note taking. It got taken down, so yeah, that's that. So again, sorry for a few German things still in here. This is just like general notes, and then I usually turn them into English text. I will, of course, turn everything. We will write everything in English when the time comes. So, the setting. This means gods and religions. I should just quickly rename that. Then we know what's in here. Gods and religions. Okay. And then we go into that later. So, starting here, we have like a few things we do different. Again, this is mainly for my Pathfinder 2nd edition campaign. That will be the follow-up to my current ones. I want to do a whole homebrew world, so we need to ask a lot, and I mean a lot of questions. I did semi-homebrewing already. I did things that are very close to the base setting of Pathfinder, which is Golarion. And now I want to stray a little bit further. So, what the setting is, let's introduce this. This will be a setting set in like an Aetherpunk setting. Yeah, basically D&D story. It's not D&D, it's Pathfinder, but same difference. Like, it's literally like Pathfinder came from D&D. It's just a different tabletop RPG. They're not doing the writing itself of the sessions. We're just building the world right now, because at the moment we just are in like a phase where we have a lot of notes and we need to put them into text. Hi, Starlight. So yeah, we're doing like a little bit of like the general lore. We do like the timeline of the setting and stuff like that. And maybe we will do like some general mapping. I'm not today prepping a session. We can do that at some other point actually. Dude, there's so many tabletop RPGs coming out. There's like, I don't know what's coming out now. At the moment, we're I'm on Twitch. I'm Twitch and YouTube. Legend of Heroes. Yes, sure. True. Legend of Heroes is coming out. Isn't it the Trails one? Trails in the Sky. But yeah, it's like so anyways, let's get back to this quickly. So I just finished explaining. So at the moment, we are building on an Aetherpunk setting. I don't actually know why it's not linked. Very good question. Whoa, what happened there? Oops, sorry. But I can link it in YouTube right now. At least in the chat. I will do that later. Like this. So regardless of that, so what is Aetherpunk? Quickly going into like Aetherpunk. Aetherpunk, basically, machines are powered by magic. It's steampunk, but very, very magic heavy. That's what it is. Done. It's basically that. It uses technology. It has golems, it has guns, very, very similar to Final Fantasy, actually. At least to 14. Very, very like Final Fantasy in general. Like, so many Final Fantasies have, like, are, like, very Aetherpunk. And I want to write something like that because I've done, like, so much other stuff. I've done pure fantasy. I've gone, like, into, like, more tech-based fantasy. And now I'm, like, I want to do Aetherpunk. So, yeah. I decided to make like a little bit of a post-apocalyptic setting, which basically started because to quickly get into that, the planet. This is are there trains? No, right now there's no trains. You mean like in the setting? Right now not, but I want to have trains. I just need to think about how to make them work properly. Because I have like, for example, like monorails and stuff like that. I wanna include that. I need to see how this works out properly. I want to have them at least as a transport because I don't wanna go as far as having cars in the setting because cars are just too much. I think I don't want to go full Legend of Korra, where it's like, oh, you have cars now. I would go with like, okay, there's like maybe chariots pulled by golems and maybe well, most likely trains. So very much Eberron in that regard, right? But yeah, the idea would be that basically the planet that the setting is on it was inhabited mainly by orcs and elves. And the orcs basically had like dynasties, like families that were like taking over the world over time. And the elves are basically a fading empire because they fell to vampirism. Because they thought there was an easy way to get immortality for everyone. And then they said, well, we can control the vampirism. And they could not. And that made both of the empires over time crumble. Because one was like lost in their old ways. And the other one was lost in like this, oh, we need to become immortal because that would be good. This idea. And then the gnomes and the goblins basically started to experiment on Aether, which would be the magic resource of the world. It would be like still with like Pathfinder rules, so spell slots and stuff like that. Very much like D&D as well. But like the idea is your spellcasting comes from the Aether that is on that world. You just pull magic from that. In different ways at least. And so what kind of rings? Goblins, it would be like goblins in terms of like little like goblin-esque creatures. So sharp ears, smaller, green to grayish skinned, and gnomes, basically like little fairy humanoids. And those two basically it basically studied or researched weaponry for made out of ether. So basically you have like they knew that thing is like that the magic radiates magic energy into the world. And the idea would be that the gnomes and goblins said, okay, let's try and make this work as a resource for like energy and stuff like that. Let's power our cities, right? And they got so much into research that they basically started to do the so-called hand project, which we have in this line of text, which would be like as a reference to the Manhattan Project. And what they did was they used that giant bomb they built and tested it on a small island, detonating the ether. And the problem is that ether is basically it's in the air. It's basically okay. You have magic energy flowing through the world, but also the ether is like there's like ether as a substance that goes into the world itself. So basically, like imagine like an oil source, right? Like an oil resource that's like inside the inside that planet called Eziko. And what they did was they used a bomb made out of that stuff, tried to just like test detonate that thing. They blew it up, but due to the explosion, there was a chain reaction that basically hit the Earth's core, or like not the Earth, but Eziko, what the planet is called, Eziko's core, and it made a chain reaction into like the entire underground civilization. So the dwarves were affected, the halflings were affected, basically hobbits. The goblins and gnomes were affected, and most of them got wiped out because all of a sudden that stuff flooded to the planet's surface. It just like expanded drastically, and like it destroyed basically like nearly all life on the surface of the planet. And only like a few species, namely like the dwarves and the elves together, said, okay, we need to ditch this because not only is that stuff flooding the planet, it's also radiating everything. And so the goblins and gnomes went extinct, and the elves and dwarves said, okay, let's build flying cities and get into the skies, because that's the only space that's far away enough from basically like the aether that flooded to the surface, but also is not radiated enough that you don't like mutate or die from it. In the meantime, Yeah, basically like a volcano. It just erupted from the earth and swallowed most of the planet. So then there's like the orcs who were like in a civil war starting or were like in a civil war before, because people were fed up with their dynasties and that they were like, okay, we have a right to the planet because they were the dominant species. We're like, okay, let's do it like this. They were like rebellions of like the people who were like suppressed by them, and they were like, okay, we give up our ways finally. Take us through the skies, please. So they did. That's how the dynasties officially ended, even though there were like some backup dynasties. With the humans, we start very soon. The humans are aliens in this setting. They are not from that planet. So, and then there were like another species, the last one that is like very, very dominant in that setting, the Kolo, or if you know the name Gnolls, basically hyena people. They rebelled against the orcs as well. And after they got freed, they became nomads and decided to save the planet. So basically most of them stuck to the surface and tried to undo the damage done. I did not lie. I said the idea was, where is it? Which line do you mean with the not mutating? No. That's gnomes and goblins. The gnomes and goblins, they got wiped out or mutated. They are gone. The dwarves and elves went to the skies. So basically, like, you have like the two species that were like responsible for everything that happened on this planet's surface. They got wiped out. They don't exist anymore because I don't want to have gnomes and goblins in my setting. The problem with Pathfinder is there's so many like species that I wanted to like cull at least one or two of them that don't fit the setting very much. Still chewing on my food. And these were like the basic notes about what happened in that apocalyptic event. We have like one or two things that I still have noticed or like still have written down. We need to jot down a few more informations because there's like still a lot of stuff that's left open, and I don't want to have too much stuff that is open, and I don't want to have too much stuff that is closed off. For example, lore, species, humans. Let's go to the humans. So the humans were basically coming from another planet that was eradicated by an event called Moonfall. They came off the world of Heimat. And after their world got destroyed, or when their world was like basically being blown up, the last wizards the humans had, or like the most prominent wizards, to say like this, decided to make a portal, but needed to like use their life energy, their last life energy, to make that portal so the rest of humanity can survive. And when they went into that portal, they went to a place called Nahul, which is like basically a limbo place, like a place between life and death, that consumes your aether. And after your aether is taken, it just like takes your life force, as long as you are like a living being, because you are basically like in a place of death where you do not belong, so you die slowly there. That was the idea. I'm not 100% sure if I want to keep it that way, but it is the easiest way to explain what happens next. where they where they walk aimlessly through that place and try to find an exit. And their patron deity that they did not meet before, they didn't know that he existed, Saint Amatus, basically adopted them. He said, okay, guys, I bring you to a world, and I want to learn stuff about you. I want to learn what you humans are, what it is, what you do. And I bring you to a place that will have you, like, basically will challenge you very much. And if you survive that, you will show me that your will is high enough that you want to keep on living, right? And so the humans basically traveled with him, and the patron deity, the saint, gave aether to, like, gave up its aether to protect the humans. And so they learned from each other. They learned, like, about the world they were, like, traveling to, like, about Eziko and the history of the Heritage War, which is like the fall of the dynasties and stuff like that. But they also he learned from the humans, right? What happened? What is going on? What happened to human civilization? And so after all of that, they went to, like, a portal, and he said, okay, here, you need to survive your oppressors. If human will is strong enough, nice. And the humans thanked him, he thanked the humans, and the humans decided to make him their patron deity. Basically, the humans worship the symbol of death, which is, I think, a bit more interesting than, like, the humans have the standard religion, right? And then when they left the portal, they arrived at some leftover dynasty. And over the next generations, the next decades, humans and orcs were, like, basically were, like, either succeeding through diplomacy or like, actually through marriage and breeding, which made the discovery that humans are basically... So what I do not like about fantasy settings is when a human mixes with a fantasy race, they become the fantasy race. I did the other way around, that the humans are basically the invasive species, and the humans override the genetics over time, which is, like, something that makes them a bit more hated in this setting, because, of course, like, it's like parasitic, right? It's like, I took this example, I'm 100% like honest with this. It's very much like the Asari from Mass Effect, where, like, an Asari and like anything else makes an Asari child. That's, like, basically like a parasite, right? But yeah. Give me, like, half a second. Well, give me, like, a minute. I need to get my dishes away. Okay, I'm back. So that's the main thing, right? That's, like, the main thing about the humans. So, question is, what do we do now, right? We have, like, things we need to do. As much as I love to talk about the stuff we did last time, so we're, like, everything here, I need to say this, like, very much Disclaimer, this is all work in progress. This is the first stages of me writing the setting. Most setting writing I do goes like this, and maybe that's like some of the faults I have when all of that happens. So anyways, regardless, when I write settings, like I have my faults as well. So we have like species. We don't have the gnomes and the goblins and the halflings. I want to get to them as like a written text when we are sure who dies in the Aether Flood. The dwarves don't die, the Kolo don't die, the elves don't die, the orcs don't die, the humans don't die. I think those are clear. There's new species. We need to talk about like some other species. But yeah, there's like some, of course, that will be more prominent as well. So, for example, is the Strix, right? So, like, these people, like the Harpy people, the Strix, will also be a little bit more prominent because it makes sense that winged people are very prominent in a setting like that, right? There's like a lot of ancestries that we need to talk about, but that happens over time. The most interesting thing, no, these are all not good, is we are redoing the time stream. So, I will take this because we have like a lot of stuff that happens here, and I will redo this, and we will the timeline. I will translate 1-to-1 quickly, and then we will do edits. So, Rise of the Orc Dynasties. So that's 2,000 years before the setting, right? That's a very long time. Elven kingdoms are founded. And then we have here the Orcish Elven Wars, 100 years after. The Orcs win this, by the way. Then we have the Emancipation of the Elves, which is Emancipation of the Elves, which is basically like the elves free themselves, right? So we have like 2,000 years ago, orcs are like doing dynasty stuff. They're like, okay, we need dynasties. 500 years later, the elves come into play and are like fully like founding kingdoms now. They found, they're in the tech tree where they say, oh, now we are doing medieval stuff, right? We are building kingdoms. We are not tribes anymore. Then 100 years after, like when the kingdoms got established, the orcs started like, oh, dude, these elves guys, we don't like them. So they attacked them and enslaved them. The 200 years after that, the elves emancipated themselves. They were long-lived up to that point. For them, it was like basically a short time, right? And then like, the elves, after they got freed, the elves decided to do dark rituals and form vampires. And the first successful elven vampire, it's with 2 S, right? Successful elven vampire happened 50 years after, I think. This means before Aether Flood, and AAF is after Aether Flood. Then we have the vampiric elven Mars things. Elves are cursed. So this is where the elves get like basically a magic timer from their patron deity, where the patron deity says, okay, you messed around with vampirism so much that nearly your entire species died out, I will cleanse the vampirism of every one of you. But after 50 years, you gain vampirism. Every one of you gets vampirism because some of you, like, during the evil G word, I cannot say that so early in the stream, otherwise we get no diffed. You went to that instantly. That was a stupid decision. Please don't do that ever again. And after 50 years, you get vampirism. And vampirism kills elves. Now, instead of making them vampires. So that happens after 50 years. So they said, okay, the elves that live now, you're 50 years, re-establish yourself, make some rules, and after 50 years, you're dead. And every newborn elf gets 50 years, and then they are dead, right? Then, this becomes the, after like 200 years after that, it's the Age of Kingdoms. Basically, it's like full medieval times, and the Orc dynasties, get rebelled against, and they disperse for the most part. Very important, not like for the most part. That happens in the next 500 years. So after that, the Kolos, Gnolls become Kolo free, and their tongue. I don't know how it's in Pathfinder, but in their setting, Kolo means free. They build their first settlements. Okay, and now we're 100 years before, and now time slows a bit by. So this is what I said last time. Just to explain, 2,000 years is a lot of time, and imagine like what happened. I assume everyone who watches me is 18 years or older, right? Because I have like the evil button that says you need to be 18 years to watch this stream. But like imagine your last 10 years and how much stuff happened. And then think about the global scale and what actually happened from the day-to-day basis. And imagine putting that in a book. You could fill like a Bible-sized books with like 10 years. Easily, right? And that is what I mean with like your characters cannot live that long, which is why I do not like long-lived elves, because imagine having a species that like lives for like hundreds of years. Like that's why like with Wiltermites in Invincible, for example, right? They live for like thousands of years. You know how long that is? Like 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago, we were in the middle of the Middle Ages. Dead in the center. Right? 1,000 years before that, we didn't even have like that, like, we didn't even have like plate armor. We were like still like in smaller settlements and tribals and stuff like that. You need to think about that, right? It's like 2,000 years is like from basically the birth of Jesus Christ, if we again say this is like year 0, which historically we know that it's not 100% dead center, but well, we take that as a time measurement, so we take that, right? Year 0 is birth of Christ for all intents and purposes, doesn't matter. To this is 2,000 years. This is like a lot of time. This is very, very much time, right? And so I wanted to have like a long time span as well, and then slow down in time so you can see the time jumps get quicker and quicker and quicker. It's like 150, 45, 40, and then in like 5 to 10 year steps, right? Because now it gets more relevant to the setting, right? At the moment, we can like fill all of the stuff in between how we want. So the next thing, 100 years before the Eighth of Blood. Project Ether or Aether is started by the gnomes and goblins. And then 50 years after that, 50 years of basically like workings in secret, Project Aether is officially presented. So basically, the world knows now about like Project Ether. Remember that like before the after the Orc dynasties, we had a reunification war already. We have like mixed kingdoms. We have like species working together in many aspects. Some of them are still like purists, right? But like they are still like they have like formed republics for some parts, right? But some parts still are like Orc dynasties. Some are like elven-led governments and stuff like that. So yeah. And now we get to the part that our friend Mehdi talked about. We had like the first railway. We should say first Aether railway, right? Basically, what happens is we need to think what was presented here, right? This is like very important. This is like bold, very bold letters, and we should like actually color this, because what is the thing that they presented there? And let's make it green, right? Project Ether is presented because if they say, okay, we can use Aether for transport, right? It changes the context of everything. Is it, okay, we can use Aether as a resource for powering machines? For example, there's a difference in, you can use Aether as a bomb to, you can use it as, to power a golem. And the golem can do stuff. Of course, the mind goes to like, oh, it can be used for war, right? Or if you say, okay, it can be used for like transport, which is also like a war aspect, but like a generalist aspect would be also very interesting, because there's also like different kinds of mechanical knowledge behind this. Making it explode is usually less of a hassle than making the explosion so controlled that an engine gets started from that, right? If you look at a car engine, basically it's like tiny like combustions, right? And that's what a combustion engine is. Tiny combustions that are like quote unquote blowing up. Very big air quotation marks, right? So like this is like what we think. And I think this should lead to this by this presentation. The presentation should say, okay, this is Aether, this is Project Aether. We wanted to make public transport that is for us to get quicker from kingdom to kingdom and have it, or like from republic to republic or whatever form of government you pick. And then this is also for trade, basically economics, right? Economical benefits. We want to get an economic golden age. And then we get into like the first Aether constructs 5 years later, right? Because now, we have like the smaller version of the railway, and now they have 5 years of like worldwide. That's very important. Now everyone knows about this. So from this, that like Aether can do stuff with machines, to this is 10 years, which is basically the same time difference between like the Nokia and the iPhone. If you think about it time-wise, right? It's like year 2000 to like 2010, where like the iPhones were like becoming more popular. So we went from like, oh, you can call through that mobile, like in a mobile way, through like normal landlines, to, oh yeah, you can, if you want to, plan your day on this and play on apps, right? I think that's very reasonable in terms of machinery, because that's also very close to what happened during the World Wars in terms of like time frame, like of like advancement in terms of like technology, right? And then we have the next thing, Project Ether. Is expanded by a giant what's it called? By a giant network of oh, dude, piss off. I need to find the English word for that. Give me 1 second. Sorry. Is it really to pump? It's like there is a word for this, like a technical word, and it is pumping, okay. But like, okay, let's take that for the timing by general of pumps and pipes. So basically now they're like going into like, okay, how do we excavate this, right? How do we get to excavation and pump that stuff into our cities to power up other stuff? For example, street lights, stuff like that, right? As power pipes used as a power source. So basically like the aether from the core, the molten aether basically emanates radiation which powers everything, right? So that's the idea. And then we have Project Autumn Flower, and Project Autumn Flower Project Autumn Flower is the first aether bomb. So they want to like test, okay, can we make this thing detonate so we don't get attacked by the orcs? Basically, the idea was, okay, we want to destroy the last orc dynasties or like get them under control because they are still existing, right? Again, human stuff happens still. And so they say, okay, Project Autumn Flower is our get out of jail free card, right? So first official tests of Project Autumn Flower. Destructive capabilities are optimized. So they found out this works very well, a bit too well. Let's optimize this a bit so we can make it a little bit more controlled. And now we have 10 years before that. So now they have a scientific breakthrough. And this scientific breakthrough says, okay, we have a scientific breakthrough on these like bombs, right? The gnomes and goblins are like, okay, we can do this. We have scientific breakthroughs here. This is great. This is good news, right? And they say, okay, they create a prototype for a weapon of unrivaled destructive capabilities, right? We have like now they are like getting into the Manhattan Project mindset, right? They're like, dude, we can split the atom at least like this fantasy version of we can split the atom, right? And now the idea is get the last remaining orc dynasties, because they were like still hanging around, right? The orc dynasties did not disappear from like day 2. They were like, okay, they were rebelled against, and of course there's remnants, and like people are like, the dynasties are great because I am ahead of everyone else. I am like, I can command my own people. This is good. Everyone else found that awful, but hey, that one orc liked it, right? Get the last remaining orc dynasties under control. And now we have multiple, again, translating multiple tests of these weapons on islands in the Mirror Belt, which will be one of our big oceans. I decided to call on Mirror Belt. And now we get to after this is thank goodness we have like English text, but this is like the hand, which is like the name of the final bomb, right? Will be tested on like the island of Kaiko, and this hits Aether Vein, and this starts a chain reaction which like starts the Aether Flood, and the gnomes and goblins are just like wiped out from existence. They fucked around and they found out, right? So the hand, let's get this quickly translated, is tested on Kaiko Island. The weapon detonates and hits an Aether Vein. A chain reaction is started and causes Aether to flood out of the Earth's of Eziko's. Sorry, it's like you need to remember that this planet is not Earth, right? Eziko's core. This causes the Aether Flood, and now because we're cool, which is why I love Notion so much. Link to page. Aether Flood, hey, and then we are on our other page. This causes the Aether Flood, and we put it there in. We can now basically link to this and have the Aether Flood now. Then the Darkened Age happens, and the Darkened Age is basically where people try just to survive this, because this is awful, right? You have like 0 BAF to 0 AAF, so after and before, and like basically you have like a giant flood of like radioactive, quote unquote. It's not radioactive, it's like magic radiation, right? But radiating magic sludge that kills you. And now people are going for the mountains, and they try to survive. They try to desperately gain resources, and this is what we call the Darkened Age. And during the Darkened Age, we need to think where we bring the humans in, right? Because after the Darkened Age, the next age would be the Age of Engineering, which is like rediscovering everything that was lost, everything, all of the tech, all of the discoveries, because like they had to abandon cities, right? And then they start over the next 25 years, after they got most or like some of the tech back, they started to do the Metropolis project, which is basically the flying cities. And the first 3 metropolises get started within the year the project is successful. So basically, like this, I put like time spans here because it's like very important to me. I did not know how to do it at the start, but for me, it's like always like from this to this, right? So I should not have done this. But yeah, the Metropolis project is it's that, right? It's a success, and then the Metropolises go on and they fly into the sky. We need to still say where the humans come in, because the humans are not in there, and we need to like clarify that the Colo, what the Colos do, because the Colos stay on the ground, right? I need to listen to one voicemail. Sorry, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I will be right back. Sorry, that's kind of important. Give me like 1 minute, and then I will be back. Okay, sorry, I'm back. So, yeah. This is basically what we need to do. Sorry. The problem is we need to see where the humans come in. The humans need to either come in before, like, because we have like the dynasties mentioned here. The question is, have humans been through the Aether Flood? Right? Have they been through the Aether Flood, or are they still going through the Aether Flood? Because the Heritage Wars, which is by basically Orc and Elven revolution. Yes, this is a very good idea. See, that is so good, Edwin, so good. Let's put that into. Let's make a new page quickly. Let's take no, we don't want lore, we want places. Let's make a play let's make that a thing. Slash page. Let's make it places. And then we make a new page. And this becomes the mirror belt. This is a very good idea, Edwin. So, basically, what you're saying is it's a very hard, it's very smooth as a mirror reflecting the sky. The mirror belt was very hard to explore with the sail ship technology. The islands only became fully... Yes! Okay, we're taking this. So, let's do the abbreviated version for that for the time being. So, area of the ocean with hardly any wind. Oh, jeez, hardly any wind, and smooth seas reflecting the sky. very hard to explore with sailing ship technology. Very, very good. Islands were only became fully explored when Aether-powered ships became a thing. Very, very good. So now we have like the mirror belt also explained, at least like very abbreviated. This is very, very good. And now we have the Aether Flood. Where's the timeline? Where's lore timeline? Okay. And then we link to the mirror belt there. Can I make this the link? Probably, right? Notion, give me things, please. One thing about Notion is that it has like its own thing. Suggest edits, add link. Mirror belt. Nice. Cool. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, the question remains: Heritage Wars were around, were like basically this entire this entire thing where the elves emancipate themselves, right? And in this time period were like the Heritage Wars. The question again is, because humans are sparse, there's not many humans right now, right? At that time. Again, they are extraplanar travelers, which got stranded there on Eziko. So the question is, when do we add them? Should they have lived through the apocalypse, or are they like post-apocalyptic and have no idea what happened before that? Because as of right now, in like Gods and Religions, no, not Gods and Religions, in Species and Humans, if I'm not mistaken, I only said that the patron deity said, where is it? Eziko History of the Heritage War and Fall of the Dynasties. So I have not included the Aether Flood in that because I'm still like, for days, I do not know if I want the humans to know about this or not. But I like the idea that the humans lived through that, and that's how they finally became free, right? From Orcish reign. So basically, what everything, like, I like the idea of the discrepancy where like the Darkened Age is something that everyone suffered through, right? Like all of the planet was like suffering through. Humans who suffered through an apocalypse before because they lost their own world of Heimat, which is like basically like losing your own world is like horrible, right? That they basically strived in that because they lived through that. And like the discrepancy of them, like, yeah, that's where we started rebuilding a little bit. Not much, not as much as like the elves and orcs, like that. Again, I don't want humans to be like one of the most prominent species on that planet. I want to have them a little bit like in like an underdog role. I like my humans with a little bit of strife instead of like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. Even though, like, again, I'm very big into also Warhammer and I like my humans there. I always play humans, but hey, I'm as basic as they are, as they come. I will put it there. Humans free themselves of Orcish reign and start rebuilding. And then again, the Age of Engineering happens, everything gets discovered again. And then we're like going to like metropolises. I will get rid of these, so just the formatting is just the same. We know that it's like, or at least I know at the time right now, that's like from this to that, right? And then like it ends with first, second, and third metropolis gets started. And now we need to think where we are as of right now. I like my fantasy settings, especially for my players. When I do a setting and introduce them, I like to take round ages, like 50 years after something, 100 years after something, because it's just easier to remember. Because like you have to remember, like most people when they play like a session or like they read like a setting book or something like that, they're doing like other stuff besides it, right? Like out of your like I watched Star Wars, right? I watched Star Wars for like 1,000 times what feels like, right? And I cannot tell you for the life of me how many years BBY is the second Death Star. I always forget that. Because I'm like 4 years. ABY, I mean, not BBY, right? No, they did not, because exactly. That's why I think that. So what happened before is that the humans were on their planet, and they did not have Aether. When they were on like Heimat, they basically have also like not have much magic in general. So, which is why when their apocalypse of like the moonfall was happening, they were like, oh damn, we need basically to like sacrifice our last wizards to leave this planet. Which is why they struggled through the limbo and stuff like that. So they did not have Aether access, at least not to the amount that like the Eziko species have access to. We could say that the humans, or I would think that the humans, because I say in this setting everything magic comes from the Aether. Like basically, if you play a wizard and you have like spell slots, it's like basically you're attunement with the Aether. What you can pull out of the Aether a day, and so basically, if you have the humans, they would have wizards, but not many, I think. And then they go to this setting where like everything was powered by magic, and they have basically no magic, like no real magic users left, or need to reacquaint themselves with it. Which is like why I like the idea with like the Aether flood being like the apocalypse, and the orcs have restricted human access to Aether technology. I like that idea very much, because they were like, okay, you are a workforce now, and the humans are thus better like able to get through the apocalypse, which is the Aether flood. The next question would then be, if we have the humans do this, right? And like the humans need to, of course, be able to cast spells, but I also want to make very clear that they are not adept at that. They should be able to, but they are not like elven levels of magician, right? Or like because like the elves, well, they destroyed themselves by becoming vampires nearly, but hey. But yeah, or the orcs or the dwarves and stuff like that. I don't want to have like the big human mages. I really do not like when I think Pillars of Eternity did that very well, where like all of the archmages were very balanced in what they were. Like some were elves, some were this, some were that. I think there's like not many Orlans, but yeah, that's like Pillars of Eternity. But yeah, it's like we need to think about that a little bit, and then like again, we need to think about also think about what happens after the first, second, and third metropolis. And I think just to like make this an even number, we do either 400 or 500. I'm not 100% sure what I want to put in there. AF. I don't know why I forgot the oh, because I'm stupid. AF, AF, and another AAF, right? AF. Which is like current day, right? So another 100 years after most of the tech got reclaimed, and people are in the skies now mainly, and had like 100 years to rebuild. I think that's more than enough time to have like a setting where like people are interacting in a working society in the skies. I think that is like, because again, so much time, like 2,000 years is a lot of time. Like, you have to remember that this from like the start of like rediscovering tech to like, if we go the 500-year route, then this is a longer time frame than America has existed. Like, America celebrates its 250th birthday this year, right? It's like this year, right? Yeah, 250 is this year. So basically, like, the time span this is taking place in is basically the same time place that America has existed. And I think that's like a very good time frame to have like established economies, politics, stuff like that, different cities doing different stuff. I think that's long enough time. We need to fill that time, of course, somehow, but we will get there. We will get there. But that's like the rough time frame. I would love to go into this and say, okay, this is, depending on the game system you are using, it might be that humans do not have sorcerers, not being from this world. That is my idea, actually. We are playing... so this is like for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Because I think this fits most, because we have like gunslingers and stuff like that, and very much golemancy and stuff like that. And many archetypes in classes that have magic access. So it makes very much sense. Plus like airships and stuff like that. So I would take that. But yeah, sorcerer access would be very interesting. Let me like write that down quickly. Humans. That is also not a bad idea. No sorcerer access. Access is written in smaller letters. Like this, right? Yeah. Sorry, German man here. If they need to become wizards to access Aether. I need 1 second. Sorry for like abandoning the stream every other minute. I'm very sorry. Usually it's not that way, but I get a call right now. I will be there in like a minute. Yeah, be. Good. I have returned. So, yeah, this The sorcerer access was something I had in mind as well. The sorcerer access is like so important because it is like the innate species, the innate class of like casting in every system I know. So yeah, we should definitely keep that in for the time being. Like I would feel hard pressed if a player would play a human sorcerer. I think none of my players are actually like, well, I have like one sorcerer player right now, but other than that, I think nobody vibes for the sorcerers in my campaigns. But yeah, so other than that, we should maybe do another place, which is our settings capital, right? We should have like a nice name of that. And we should also think about what it is and what the surrounding area looks like. So is it like just a floating city? Is it just is it like around somewhere? I feel like we should have that just like as a main point of like, this is the city of the setting, right? This is like what the setting is basically looking like. This is like the trains. This is like everything that this is capital city. I don't know. I need a good name. So usually what I do is I take like multiple languages and mix them together. But I don't want to do this for this because sometimes it sounds really weird. So I would say let's call it, what would people that nearly died in the apocalypse call the first flying city that saved their asses? I would say maybe Haven. Let's call it a WIP. It's a work in progress. So, what do we know about, what do we want to have in the city? So, it should be technologically advanced. It should also be a focal point of political interest in the area. Capital city. I don't know if we're like flying cities, how we do it with nations, or if I say, okay, there's like these cities see themselves as like city states, right? They are city states, I would say, right? It's like very much like you have like basically flying Luxembourgs. I feel like that is like the thing I would do. Let's keep it as like flying city state. And of course, this is like the general stuff, right? It has, of course, a mixed population. This is also very important. We need to have a city that if I say, okay, we are now in this city, that I don't, well, what does it mean I don't like it? But I've like had many campaigns where like my characters or my players were quote unquote freaks, where it's like, oh, we have a human setting with orcs and one wanted to play a lizard folk, and now you have like, oh, this is like, there's like a dinosaur man running through the streets, right? Of course, as a DM, you can just say, no, don't do that. But I rarely do want to put too much stipulation on my players. I'd rather like work a little bit on the setting and make it fit from where they come from and talk with them. I think a cooperative approach in that works best. But of course, you need to like always keep in mind, especially as a DM, right? Or GM or whatever wording you're picking. You always have to keep in mind, oh, damn, these guys are freaks. Especially in like settings where you say, oh yeah, a tiefling or an Azima or whatever you want to call them on Pathfinder, they're both the same and called Nephilim. they are like running through the streets. Is that normal? Is that rare? How is that? And what do the people think? For example, there are settings where people are in awe of these people, right? They're like, oh, they have been blessed to be great, or they have to be cursed to be unworthy, right? Exactly. Exactly. That is like something. That is like something. That is something which I mean, like if they have like a human sorcerer where you need to cooperate. Because, for example, just as an example, I play on my current campaign. So at the moment, I'm playing a campaign on my Saturday campaign, which is the one that we need to prep the setting for mainly. The current campaign plays on a world. There's like very, very, very I would say grounded in magic, where it's like, oh, everything, most of the stuff is magic, where like the people believe that if you use a tinderbox, right, to make a flame or spark, it's not the mechanics that work behind that, but it's like you have a tiny ritual with you that takes a spark from the plane of fire, and that makes the fire, and not like a rock hitting another rock, right? So that's what the people believe. And so nobody is, the idea was they were like so grounded in like that is how the natural order works, that they thought that fairies or like fairies did not exist in that setting up to that point. They were like not magical people, right? It's like, oh, mundane interacts with magic. And so like all of a sudden they have fairies now. But one of my players plays a character that has been that knows about the fairies. They know about that because they were like basically grew up among them. They were like experimented on and like lived with the fairies, and they were like the outsider there and came to the basically like to the people who are like defending the world, right? They're like part of the group now, and so they are not shocked. And that was like a big plot point where they're not shocked that fairies exist because they knew that they existed. But if they would gone to like a normal dude, they would have like said he's insane, right? And that's what you need to do with like any background that does not 100% fit the setting. You need to work around that. Yeah, with like this, it's like always like you need to interact, and that goes back to like the population thing of like your setting. If you have like a main city that you have to go to, you always have to think about, okay, are my characters freaks, or are they the normal guys, or are they like what does their background tell about them? For example, like if they play a human, right? A human would say, okay, my patron deity is the personification of death. So they would handle like death worship and death calls very differently than like an elf who was punished by the patron deity to never deal with the undeath again, right? Basically never touch vampirism again or you flat out die. It's like very, very different things, and that makes the interactions very interesting, because an elf and a human would be very antagonistic on that thing, right? And especially in like a city with mixed population, because all of a sudden you have like all these ideas running together. You have like orcs that are against dynasties and like bloodlines having something to say about you, together with other orcs that think the dynasties were not 100% incorrect and that orcs are superior, together with elves that are against undeath, humans that are for that, the Kolo, or which were the Gnolls, who are like, oh, we just enjoy the freedom we have. Everyone should choose freely what they believe, right? And like the other species with the dwarves, who are like very, very like into magitech, right? They're like, because they don't have like their classical roots of like mining and of like mining and masonry and stonework and stuff like that. They don't have that anymore, right? It's gone. It's totally gone. But they now have like this other hyper focus, which is, oh, now we can do stuff with magic. We are magic crafters now because we're needed, right? And that is like something that I thought would be like kind of interesting. But yeah, I need to do one page because one page is still in German. One page is still in German. I don't know why. I'm like clicking on my second monitor. I'm still here. But yeah, okay. Good. Second monitor stuff is over. So that is what we need to think about. Okay. Now we have the city. Right. We have now the city with a mixed population, flying city state. It's like a giant hub for like people to go to. What is so special about it? Especially of the why is there a political interest? And now it's like very central in terms of other nearby metropolises. I need to think about the plural on this one. Because now we have now this like city hub, right? We have now this like crossroads of trade. Even though the people can fly, usually you would take like, of course, like travel to like, if you have like 5 points on a map, right? You would try to have like the center point where like everyone meets, because that is like the easiest to reach for everyone else, right? It's like how trading hubs evolved. That's how like Constantinople and stuff like that happened, right? And the Library of Alexandria, because it was very central to everyone who went by boat. Dude, finally something to drink. Economically viable. Now we have like because it is the trading hub. And now we have like political power, right? Now we have like political powers interacting with what is like the city itself. So basically you have like these other cities that are being a flying city state. Does it mean remain in one place or move freely? Or maybe it follows a predetermined path. I'm like thinking about that right now because I'm like, okay, can they move? And I feel like due to the rush job they did, the cities remain at least in space. Like they cannot move freely. I would say that at least. I don't know if I want to have the move overall, because they should not move freely because of the urgency to get them into the sky. They do not have the tech for that, I think, for like giant land masses. I think lifting them up, I can imagine like basically that any aether like radiation has like behaves like a magnet, right? I can imagine that. So basically how they like in like my mind, it would make most sense as an electrician at least. It would make most sense if like basically aether has like quote unquote north and south pole, and the dwarves reverse engineered it, so like basically the landmass pushed itself away from the aether that is like the flowing aether, the aether veins in the earth, push them away from that, right? So you have like flying cities. The question is, do they keep the momentum, or does the earth, or like do they have like speed loss because of friction. And it would make sense to have them move. The question is, for a setting, if these cities move, right? I always think about, like, what would my players think? Because if the city moves constantly, right? If they move through a predetermined path, then of course there would be like places the cities would go to where there's potentially no ether below it, and thus it would not make sense anymore why it flies, right? Because like some places are not like fully flat, for example mountains, right? Which is where like people fled at first, as high up as possible, which would mean every time it would go over a mountain, the city would all of a sudden fall, right? If we go with the logic of like magnetism, like magic magnetism, quote unquote. But if it follows a path, you could say, okay, it follows the ether, right? But do all cities do that? And how long does it take? Is a year, for example, like is it basically like a annual rotation of your city, or is it very slowly? Is it like continental drift? Not as slow as continental drift, of course. Like we don't need a Pangea situation there, because then you could say they are stationary at that point, because well, either continental drift happens constantly, that would not do anything in a campaign, right? We should get to that question in a few. I will do that in bold. Question: do the cities move? If yes, how? Set path, random, controlled. Those are like things that is like a very good question. That is a very good question. I need to brainstorm about that. What is like the benefit and what is the disadvantage, right? There's like so much good and so much like confusing, because now like I am a DM, or I am a DM that can be sometimes a little bit lazy. I'm 100% honest. And like tracking the city constantly where it is right now is something you can easily do. In theory, if you have a global map, right? You just do, hey, this is my PNG of the map, and I have another PNG of the cities, and now they move. But how does that work for the players, right? We keep that in mind, and quickly go into something else. What I want to know is if this city would be a trading hub, right? How does it basically how does it work out for people in the city? Poverty is a very important question. Poverty, social classes is also very important, and prominent religions, and of course very, very important, education. I do not like my settings where like people like I sometimes enjoy settings, let's say like this, for example dark fantasy settings. If you have like a dark fantasy setting where like not everyone can read, it's interesting, but of course all the player characters need to read in theory, because otherwise it turns like into, I don't know. I for example, I did not enjoy, if you ever watch Critical Role, Grog's non-literacy, even though it turned into a nice small character arc. But for everything it was like, here is the dumb guy punchline followed by into basically everyone else tells the player what they already read, right? It becomes like this, like, I explain to you what you see in front of you, and that is like, you may have not noticed, but stuff like this is like such a huge time waster. Not because it's like, again, I find it charming to some extent, but it can be so taxing if like you have like this same dialogue over and over and over again. Same with like if you have exposition talks with NPCs, right? Usually I just tell my players, okay, you convey the information to said person, right? They don't need to like, if the reaction is not important. For example, if they tell the town guard, yo, we found the cult and they did this, right? And the town guard's reaction to this is, okay, we're going there and we're trying to get a hold of the situation. Then I will say they relay the information instead of saying, oh, well, now you need to RP the small dialogue where the town guard says, oh no, we will do this now, right? Because it's just like padding at that point. It becomes very much padding. Not because I don't like, I love roleplay. Roleplay is my favorite part about like any RPG, but I don't want to have like a 3-hour session where like 2 hours is, and then I said this to this guy again, right? I sometimes laugh when we abbreviate. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes you need to RP, and I need to get that itch. as a perma DM, I need to get my itch scratched. But yeah, back to like the city. It's like these are like important issues, right? Especially like also medicine is also a very important issue. And now the next question to this is, or the answers should be, poverty is low, though there are is the poverty low is the question. It's a trading hub. So many people are like washed up merchants, people who's like, I imagine a little bit of Night City in there, where it's like, okay, I go to, in this case we call it Haven. I go to Haven and my life will change, right? And they wash up there and they have a bad time and they fall in with the wrong crowd, stuff like this. I can imagine this happening very realistically without the city being too safe. I tend to make my main cities way too safe, where it's like, oh no, there's nothing, where there's like the one thief guild and like that one underground fighting arena, but that's it, right? Otherwise the city is clean. No major city is clean. Like, if you've ever been like to a city that some people would consider still wealthy enough, especially like capital cities, which are economically viable and not just like, oh, there's like the politicians and the poor people. Then like many capital cities still have like very big underbellies, right? You know, they stay in the same place being captured in the field. That's true, yes. Right, that is absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Edwin. You know what we do? We keep it at that. We keep at the time being. We do the following. Let's keep it here. City does not move. Let's keep it with that. It stays in place. It can spin, and depending on the power of the Aether below. Maybe there's like events where like the power of the Aether wanes a little bit during certain times of years. For example, I will just put that in like a bracket and with a question mark, because that is a question we should ask later. Maybe like cosmic events, right? Because it could be like something like I don't know, an eclipse or something like that, right? Basically like a magic eclipse, something like that. It can change altitude. That is also a very good idea. See, this is why I like doing this on stream, right? Which is why I like the idea of doing this on stream, because there's so many good ideas, and I just don't get like a writer's block, and we can just spitball ideas back and forth, right? But yeah. Thank you very much. Like your input today is invaluable. It's like actually crazy. The question is now the poverty, with the poverty again, right? Let's go back to that quickly. The poverty, in theory, like in every major city, there's like a lot of poverty and a lot of like small scale crimes. So if you go to like European, if you look at European cities, right? Not saying like not like the bigger bad examples, but like if you look at like something, well, Paris is very extreme, right? Especially at the Eiffel Tower at the moment, but where like many like organized crime happens, sadly. But many major cities have just crime there. It just happens. It attracts them because many people go there with the hopes of achieving something and don't, and so they return to or they turn to crime just to like keep on by, right? And then you have like people who want to extort the rich. That always happens as well. So like there should be like poverty is dependent on the area. Some parts are more rich, some parts are very poor. We should, however, think about like what we call city parts. I would call them. That would be like the thing, right? Are they the underside? Are the poor parts the underside? Are the poor parts like something that is also not desirable? For example, like if you think about like cities I did in our settings, usually I tend to do it like, oh yeah, the people who live on the lower side of the city are like the weaker ones, right? Or like the have less power, because I always think about like of like control and power, especially in a setting like this, as like the more you see, the more you control, right? I think the only city, by the way, Casiero is one of my players in my Friday campaigns. If I think about like the only city that was the other way around, because I said I find it interesting to flip that, was Zetal, which was like a city where like the lord and lady lived in a castle inside the lake, right? A lord terrorist. But the idea is, if you like, usually I like my powerful people living on top, like above the other people, because first of all, impression, right? This is why like many buildings are so huge. It's just like, okay, it looks tall, it looks more mighty, right? It's just like the impression, it's intimidation factor. But also, if you look down on someone, it gives you a superiority aspect. And also you have like the next thing, which is you can see more. You can see the happenings in your city better, right? And also the defensive aspect of you see an attacker coming, right? If they need to kill your king, they need to fight uphill. And you have like the farmers below them, it's just easier to like defend, right? Because the farmers will fight back. to save their livelihoods. And if they get killed, well, the farmers are dead. Whoops. But also you have like a nice alert system. This is not a thing in a setting that it went through the apocalypse and formed flying city-states. Like, this is like something you have to think about. Like, this is like not something that regularly happens in like a setting where like everyone lived together through the apocalypse. So the question is, I would find it interesting if the poor parts are on the underside, because they're closer to the radiation, right? To the radiation of the surface, which would be interesting, because that would mean like, oh yeah, you send your poor down there, they die through radiation, or maybe they mutate, and all of a sudden you have like, oh, there's mutants, like mutated people. But also you have like, or you put them in the inside of town, basically like a reverse ring thing, right? Like with like city rings. I think the first city I did for my Friday campaigns was basically I built them like in like certain rings, and the rings went into another ring that was a little bit elevated, and the last the main district where the queen and the castle were like in the center of town. What if we do this like the opposite way, where like the rich people are outside and can see the surface below and see the world how it is, right? See like into the horizon, and the other people are like blocked out by the city innards. I like both of these approaches actually. Maybe we should say, I like the idea that especially like from like, imagine from like a bit of like a dark side of the city aspects, right? Where you have like this nice city, right? This marvel of magitech, basically, where like everyone works with ether, where you have like trains and golems that do your work. And then like the people in the center, the working folk, the poorer folk that need to like do the manual labor still, basically do not see the outside world. But that's too much cyberpunk for me already. That's like a bit too dystopian, right? That's like, then we go like into like full-on dystopian cyberpunk stuff, and that is a bit much, I think. I think it's like a bit too dread for the setting, to be honest. It's a little bit too like, oh yeah, the poor people yearn for the mines. So I would say some people are very poor, and I would go with the approach of poor people live on the underside of the city. They get sent there. I think that is like a very, very good idea. It has like something, I feel like, with like, it has like a little bit of like a dark aspect where you send your like, again, everything I say here is within the setting. Like, I'm not using words to like discriminate against someone or something like that. I just say like, this is everything. Most of the stuff is with big quotation marks, but like your quote unquote undesirables, to send them on the other side, underside of the city, so nobody needs to look at them, right? And like, which makes them a little bit of like unpredictable, especially crime organizations who go to like top side and can infiltrate the city a little bit better. If you have like smuggling rings, stuff like that. You know what is the good part? Before you test drive this setting, at least my like, except if you wipe all of the sudden, then I'm like in a bit of a pickle. With a flying city, water becomes an issue unless you use magic to create water, depending on what captures stored rainwater. Yes, I actually have like a hand note written to me like on my PC, which I pull off because you bring it up right now. There should be still, of course, settlements below. Like on the Earth, especially again since some of the Colo decided they want to restore the world to what it was before. So they tried to quote unquote heal the world, but other Colos decided, okay, I'm going into the flying cities because we came from Orcish, we came out of slavery from the Orcs after the elves helped us flee. And we wanted to have a free life, which is why we became like nomadic and made small settlements and just travel the world. And now we are like committing to like something, like sitting in one place, trying to our entire life to heal this like place of nature, right? So I'm thinking that there's like on the surface, which is like something that is very, very important for the people in the city. There's like small settlements and like still functioning lakes that actually trade water with the flying city. So they have created their own little hubs on the ground, which is like something I want to get I want to have like two ideas of this setting. While you're in the city, it's very urban. It's very let's call it like human interaction, very like ethical debates, stuff like that. And once you get to the ground, you have like, of course, you have like your settlements, but you also have like a land to explore again because the world was destroyed. Basically, everything was flooded, and like you have like due to the Colo workings, they try to redirect the flowing ether a little bit and stuff like that. So they try to repair the world. So you have like a new like wilderness to re-explore, old ruins of cities and stuff like that. So where you are like in the city above, where like let's put it like into perspective. When you're in the cities above, I want it to be a little bit more like I want to have it more to be like the punk aspect of the Aether Punk. And while you are on the surface, you should have like a little bit of a Dark Souls feel. Everything is abandoned and falling apart, except for like very small hubs where still like there's some people, and the only thing is keeping the people above alive, while also the people in the cities try to capture as much rain and create as much water as they can. So like the average mage with like a little magic potential goes into like resource creation, right? So basically like create food and water. They take the Aether and like basically your job, your average Joe who is able to cast spells learns just to create water and food, because those are like the resources that everyone needs to like keep society afloat, right? Which would be very bad if like the mages would die, which gives also another political tool for like other people to control the cities, even outside of the cities. So basically you have like a few natural resources. You could also say that natural water is a commodity, right? That is like something you could also think, like natural water is not a common thing. Magic water, sure, it's just like magic water. It's tasteless, it's bad, but like normal mountain water is something people enjoy, right? Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that, right? And like I imagine it a bit like if you have like the underside, I would usually I've instantly like a picture in my mind, right? The underside, I imagine a little bit like if you ever played like a Paper Mario game or like any Mario RPG and you go underground, you have like all that pipage, right? Or like way better example, Duema Ruins in Skyrim. If you've ever played Skyrim, Duema Ruins, right? There's so much pipage and sewage and stuff like that. I imagine it a little bit like that, but a bit more cavernous, where you have like a little bit of like crawl spaces where people live, and then like there's like pipes that give like the entire living thing a structure, right? This like small hole in the ground, quote unquote, where like I don't know, the poor people live, but or live like a squalid lifestyle. But yeah, but also maybe that gives them the warmth, right? Because you have now like all of that like sewage and stuff like that, and that has like a certain warmth that it emanates. It's a bit like I think it's like a good idea actually to say they live on the underside, and you have all of that stuff that basically goes past their homes, because that makes sense why they would go underside as well, instead of like sitting on the street, right? I really like that idea. We keep that as like a good side note. We do poor people live in crawl spaces between pipes that disperse sewage and what else could it disperse? Maybe water? Question mark. There's a lot of question marks. There's stuff that, again, this is like second session where we like talk about the setting. There's like some stuff that will work itself out. I try to work as little on the setting outside of these streams because I like the brainstorming idea. I think this is very, very fruitful, actually. Let's think about what does rich people live there? Rich people. Let's talk about social classes in that same sentence. Social classes. So we have like, of course, the rich people, and we have, in contrast, the poor people. What are the main things the rich people and the poor people have in common or are opposed to? So I don't want to have one species, like one heritage of like people, one race, be like the rich guys. I don't want to have like a Ferengi situation, right? But what I want to have is I want to make a little sheet here. Like this. Class, social class. Maybe we have nah, the table system does not work. I remove that. Okay. We have poor people, rich people, and we have, between the rich people, we have the basically the leaders of the city, which is like we call it politicians. And then we have like rich people. So the politicians influence the rich people and of course the poor people by extension. While the rich people of course influence the politicians and the rich people influence the poor people. And vice versa. What are like those social circles? That is like the question. For like social circles, what do the politicians do? The politicians, of course, are doing, well, politics. They are, I would say, like from a rank, they are they elected? Probably, right? Like they are probably elected. They are elected because those city states, again, like these are like, we have to always remember that cities like these, they were created out of desperation with like people working together. So it would make sense if they elect their politicians. By the people, probably, right? Let's keep it at the moment by the people. I could also see them being elected by a certain subset of people, by an electorate or something like that, where you have like, I would say like, maybe like the 200 most successful people, right? That is very good. That is like from both of you. That is very, very good. The question is, first let's start with ancient Rome. Let's keep those with the patricians. I like that. I like that very much. Let's keep that for the time. Patricians. Equestrians. Oh, Jesus Christ. Equestrian. I can't write for shit today, sorry. Equestrians and the plebeians. So now, what was the politician class before the city was gentrified? So, the question is, how much does it matter? Because at that point, the city, so the political leaders, I imagine in a city that was forced into the sky by technologies. Hello, Natalie. Hi. Natalie's on YouTube. She says hi. The politicians, right? How much did they do actually before the Aether Flood, or when the Aether Flood happened? Because again, we go back to the timeline quickly, just so we get a better better idea. So this is when the Metropolis project was started, right? So this is where, like, and we say, just for simplicity's sake, for writing's sake, Haven is the first one, right? We're doing like this, and we say, okay, Haven. Link to that and pick Haven. Okay, this is the work in progress. So this is what happened, right? So this is the first city. Just probably going to say hi. I need to go study math now. My test is in 2 days. Yeah. Wish you the best, Natalie. Really, wish you the best. And much success. You don't need luck, you need success with the math thing. So very much success on that one. We will see each other or hear from each other very soon. So back to Haven. So what happened before is, if we go back, we have the Age of Engineering, right? Where it's like, okay, we have this, everything gets rebuilt, right? And people need to find themselves and reorganize themselves. Then we have like 200 years after that, after like post-apocalyptic drama where like nearly everyone died. We have like, okay, Age of Engineering. We rediscover our stuff. We have now, I think now Haven has been founded by that point, right? And now Haven has existed for 125 years because like probably the biggest cities that have been there were like part of the Metropolis project, right? And then have a Haven happen. And now the question is, were politicians, representative workers, were they administrators, or were they just scientists and planners behind the project? I think this is important in how your upper class will represent themselves to the world in general and the players in particular. Yeah, so, yeah, I understand now what you mean. I think most likely that over those 125 years, it were like probably administrators, because that makes the most sense, right? So think about this. You come out of the apocalypse and now you need to make impromptu cities where like people all of a sudden work together. I think the workers themselves are important, but only for like very temporarily, right? It's like the same with like how back in the day, some mayors were just like the guy who is the oldest, right? Because like, or like the guy who works, who's like the most successful worker. It reminds me a little bit of like when we play Fridays and we have Vattenhall as a city, which is like a small harbor city, and the tavern, the bartender from the tavern is the mayor because he's the guy everyone knows, right? He seems to talk to everybody. That makes the most sense for a mayor. But that is not like long-term politician, right? So I would think it would be like more administrators, because the administrators are the people who need to organize everything with like a bunch of randos. Like you have like a bunch of people who were lucky to survive the apocalypse and now rediscover technology, and now they have those scientists working in the background. So administrators would be the wisest choice, I think, for this city in particular. So I would say I think, I don't know if I want to do Dr. Breen all the way down. I think one of my biggest faults as a DM is I like to make my leaders always a little bit likable for some reason. I don't know why. I just like, for example, like with the Emperor, I could have made him a very big dick, but I made it like, oh, he's still nice somewhere down because he like stumbled into that role, right? Back in the day. But now Dr. Breen all the way down would also be very interesting. I think they would get a token representative. I'm not 100% sure if I want to have one guy representing the city, or if it's like a council, and then you have like the guy who says the most, which is the administrative aspect, and then you have like another guy who is, or like two guys, or like the workers' union guy and the scientists' union guy, and those are like basically like the triad of like political leadership, right? And basically like the administrative guy is the guy who has like the most say in things, but the other two need to like represent their people. I think that would be that would make the most sense, because you still have like the guy who has like, of course, the most power, but the other guy still can say something, right? I think he should have like, yeah, I think that would be the best thing. Let's do whoa, why did I lose my connection? Hello, anybody there? I lost my connection to chat. No. Now my chat connection is back. Did someone write something? Quickly looking. Okay. Okay, now I see. Hi. Words. Okay, now I see text again. I don't know why sometimes my Twitch, my Twitch just decides to say, okay, I don't have a connection to chat anymore. Also, why is my character winking like weirdly? I'm very sorry for that. We should actually start at some point doing the we should at some point starting to do the stream where we rig the model again. So politicians, they're elected by the people. I'm 100% for that. Let's keep the triad for the time being. Triad of administrator, most important. Engineering and or like workers union and scientists. Scientist union. I call them union right now. Those are secondary. maybe they can influence him or something like that, but like the main guy should be, there should be like a main mayor or anything, or president or whatever, who is like still working in a council. I think that makes the most sense, at least like to get most approval, right? Maybe a chancellor or something like that. I can see that. And how it formed, we should like how politics formed in Haven before it was a metropolis. Again, metropolis is the name of like the flying cities. It was a safe haven for refugees of the Aether Flood. Administrators took over control to keep the people in check. After it became a metropolis, system changed to thank the engineers and scientists so that they have a political representative. I think that is like how we can keep it at the moment. But that makes very much sense actually, because if I think about the players are doing stuff in the city, right? And now they meet like a politician, no matter how small or how big, right? It makes a little bit more sense that like they would react, especially like to the players in a different way, depending on how they what class socially they are, right? So that makes a lot of sense at least. We should keep that as it is. We put like more structure and colors into that after we're like basically done with this page. Now the next question is, now that Natalie, I know that Natalie will not be here for the next 2 days. The next question is, of course, will we at some point draw a map? And yes, we will. Natalie said he or she can, they can draw maps. I have like a mapping tool, but if they can do that, why not give them a shot? They made like that beautiful artwork of me on my Discord, actually, of me playing Pokemon. And it's like one of the most impressive arts and my very first fan art, actually, which is crazy. Anyways, back to like world building. We have now the next question is okay, we have politicians, right? But now the next one would be so we have like the patricians, right? I call them patricians right now because I like the idea of the Roman words very much. Patricians. Now we can say the equestrians. And now we have like call them rich folk for like abbreviation sakes, right? Or like rich businessmen makes more sense. Businessman. Now we have like the equestrians. So what are they like? Who is like among them? And of course, since we define the city as like a gateway where like everything is possible and stuff like that, we would say, of course, and we say it's like many people are going there because it is a viable trading hub. We would say, of course, owners of trading companies. I think that's like the most obvious one, right? Like the people who are like responsible for operations on like trading companies going smoothly should be like the ones who are like the richest, right? The question is, how much nepotism do we want to have here? That's like one of the more interesting things, because like those people are like the especially like morally wise, right? Are these people rich? Quick question: are these people rich because they are good at trading, or do they own resources? That's like one of the most important things we need to clarify here. Are they self-made, or are they just born lucky, right? Who are like the richest of the rich? Are the richest people the people who own wine and goods and land, or are the richest people the people who got the ball rolling? Because I can go with both ideas, especially before they made Haven a metropolis and it went into the sky. Because in theory, just thinking about it, you can either spin it this way, where these people came with their goods and they had something to trade with and made their living out of being able to trade by like going to Haven and having resources already, or they own land that is not hit by the was not hit by the flood, and they were just lucky to survive, and now they have this land somewhere where they can get resources and keep it a secret. Or are these like people who are like, okay, we went to the skies and now we need to establish trade routes with people who also are in the skies now, where it's like Metropolis 2 and 3, we need to establish those, and now we need to do that. Or both. Both is also an option. It was like, do we have like a Jeff Bezos situation here, or do we have like a Muskian, I inherited a mine and that's how I got my first start, and then I got resources? Or do we have like even like something other where like they basically got the equivalent of $1 billion in cash just because grandma died, right? It's like that's like one of the more important questions. Again, it can be everything, but I think that I inherited so much money from my predecessor is very unlikely in a setting where you had the apocalypse happen. In terms of like, oh, I am super rich now, right? That you own like a house or something like that, or a mansion, okay, that you inherit that. But like, it's not that long ago that like so many riches can be accumulated, right? If you go back to timelines, if you go with Rome, patricians got most of their wealth from land ownership. But in this city-state, there might be big real estate owners making the money from the people they are paying rent. That is like what I was thinking as well, right? It could be like very wealthy traders, and also like estate owners. Earning money through rent. That's also like very, very, very likely. I will leave the rich business, like the owners of trading company guys, I will leave them as is, because I think we go with the route of like everything is possible for them. With like the estate owners, of course, they have like power and influence because they own like half the houses. We see it in real life right now, right? Look at like there's like singular entities that own like more than like 1,000 apartments, like more than that, right? Like there's like tens of thousands of like properties like a single person, because it's possible, and I think that would happen in like a setting like this, very, very likely. And I think someone with like someone with worth real estate on the surface. For example, I'm thinking like a vineyard, right? Where you have like a person who is like lucky enough that he can like have wines, like something you cannot just like create magically, which is like a bit harder to replicate, right? Or maybe like owns a mine, question mark, like something small, where they were lucky that the Aether has not destroyed everything, because of course they need a mine. They need like, if they have constructs, they need metals. That's like one of the things, right? So that would make sense. That they know someone or have something where like people actually are active on the ground. Very sparsely, but that makes them rich. That's the idea why they are rich right now. Right? Then you have like the next one, which is of course, and that is like the next category, and that is like maybe like leaders of organizations. I cannot write for shit today. I'm very sorry. Organizations. I hope I wrote that wrong. Right. Well, no, that's right. Okay. Organizations. For example, Mages Guild, question mark. Golemans workshops. Or something similar to that, like adventuring guilds. Like something that is like very, very common, which would be adventuring guilds becoming more like explorers guilds, where they go to the surface and do stuff. Right? Like think about like, I always think about like a reverse cyberpunk in that regard, right? You have like, or like reverse Shadowrun, like something where like the mission is not in the city, but you go outside, where like the wilderness is a thing that people want stuff from. Like the mundane work, where it's like too dangerous because of radiation, because of other stuff happening, right? I think that would be like very, very, very common for a setting like this. Where like the surface is so dangerous, you cannot, for the love of everything, you cannot just go to the surface and get something, right? Which makes it also very interesting for rivaling groups, I feel like, where I can see like your players going to a mine, and then because there's like an old abandoned mine shaft, and that like Colo have freed up over the last 2 years or something like that. And all of a sudden there's like a bunch of resources that are now free, and someone needs to claim them. And so I can see an adventuring group going there saying, oh, is the mine free now, or is that like a nest of mutated spiders or something like that, right? And then a rivaling group arriving there and saying, yo, don't get too cocky, guys. We are also here and we want to claim it for our guy. I can see that happen. So like, which makes like human interaction a little bit more dangerous on the surface, right? I think yes. I think that a plebeian who should be we go to the plebeians quickly, just so we have like info on the plebeians. I have done way too many arrows. I need to restructure this a little bit. Give me 1 second. State owners. Let's use those arrows for the main thing and dots for the other. Now we do the plebeians. Plebeians. Let's start with plebeians. So, working folk, of course. Just people getting by. It's just like the normal guy, right? It's your General Joe. It's your mechanic. It's your as we said, magicians who can cast let's see, mechanics, mages who create resources, and we have for example and people keeping order. So you have basically like the main three things, right? You have like people who do like your handiwork. You have people who create resources as good as possible. And you have like people keeping order. That's like the main things, right? So people can survive in that city. And then you have like the next one. Powerful magicians of any kind can be treated better socially, being potent in their magic. Chance of rising up. No, going up is better, right? Going up on the social ladder or social hierarchy. Hierarchy. That's what I would say, right? And then we have like more plebeians. Who could also be there? Of course, adventurers / explorers. So people who are like people who go onto the surface to do work for others. So I can see like many people of the lowest like rungs of society actually going this route. Because I can see like many people saying, okay, I can either sit down here on the underside of the city and have a bad day and die from radiation. Hooray, that is nice. Or I could be going down there onto the surface and maybe get rich quick. I think that's like a high risk, potentially high reward work without the need of special skill or learning. Basically like as long as you can like wield, I don't know, a sword or something like that, you could go on the surface, right? Nobody hinders you from doing that. We should definitely talk about how you get down to the surface, like how you get down and up. That is like something we have not touched, and I'm not 100% sure if we want to do it the magic way or if we want to do it the punk way, right? Where we say, okay, you have like a skiff or something like that flies you down. And then we have like the part of the plebeians are the poor folk as written above. That is a very good thing that you bring that up. I think that would be like so obvious, and it's crazy that I did not think about this. So basically you would say that like, yeah, I could see that. Let's do this. Some patrician families might have sorcerer bloodlines and marry relatives and no, not they not all do that, right? And act in questionable behavior, like marrying relatives to keep the bloodline strong. Socially very frowned upon. That is like something I think that would be like very, very, very socially frowned upon. And like like I don't want to have like too much like classic, oh yeah, they're marrying the cousin and people are shaking their heads, but well, that's the king, it's the king's business. I think we should like this should be like a Game of Thrones Cersei and Jaime situation where like the people went ape shit when like that got like found out, right? But it would be very interesting in theory to see that. I like that is something that I find very intriguing, actually. That is very good. I like the idea. The thing is also with the bloodlines, if we go deeper with that, like I don't want to go deeper into like the incest idea, but like that they basically you have like a secret deep aristocracy, or like basically like many families acting like dukes and duchesses while they live in a time where that is not up to date. So basically like the politicians are basically trying to relive the past that they've never lived, right? Like a thing like where I can imagine many balls and festivities in between the higher classes, right? Like something like I can see like the quote unquote royal ball in this city that has nothing to do with like the Middle Ages anymore. They're like hundreds of years past that, right? They're like hundreds of years past the classic Middle Ages, but these people try to relive this, and they have like many of them have like a social disconnect because of that. Because like some of these families are like in power for like a few generations now, like at least like 2 or 3, and they're like, no, that's how my family is. The cousins like each other very much, and everyone else is like, ew. Especially with like the backstory that the humans are seen as like very disgusting by like, again, as we established earlier, that they basically, I made the human have like a lot of DNA shared with like the Sari, where like humans can basically, a human and an orc are not a half orc because there's orc now in the human, but there's human now in the orc. They're basically half humans, and basically like another generation later, the half orc and a human become a human, where like nearly non-half or non-orcish DNA is left. And I think that makes way more sense because again, human are an invasive species in this setting. So, idea for an NPC. I didn't know of any with a sorcerer bloodline, but was born without sorcerer powers. He's using the trick magic item feat to fake being a sorcerer. That is, if Icacero is there, that is basically not with the trick magic item stuff, but the idea was he is playing at the moment a witch, which was like one of the few non-magically born people in his like noble family, and he was like blessed upon by an outer being by having like the witch powers. But it doesn't matter. It's like a very good idea always, like to have like this one guy who's like out there and needs to like trick other people or like use other methods instead of like what the rest of the family uses. That is like a very interesting idea. I would put the NPC idea down here and make it bold because, oh, wrong. Sorcerer who has no magic. No, wait. NPC with sorcerer bloodline where he is the only family member without magic access, tricks other people into believing he has it. That is a very good idea. I will keep that for later. Again, NPCs will come way later. But we have like done a lot in terms of like the city. It does not sound much, but we have like done a lot brainstorming up to this point. Okay, we have like now the social classes actually. What else do we have here? We have prominent religions. We take the main religion that I mentioned earlier. Good question. Very good question. Would they be discriminated against? The question is like, would they? Because yes, Aether Flood, magic, made the world go boom boom. But most people have somewhat, like, magic has become so unanimous with like technology. Because again, everything is powered by Aether, which is like magic. So if everything is powered by magic, would they... I have an idea. I had like one thing that I had in another setting planned and never used because it never came up. Spellcasters are under constant no, not constant investigation. Sorcerer's bloodlines are definitely cataloged. because of us, especially because of the social stigma, right? And also under investigation of their doings outside of social norm. So basically, I see like a little bit of a plot with like both of your ideas mixed, right? I see like a little bit of a plot where they keep the sorcerers in power because that's how they stigmatize them, right? They say, okay, sorcerers tend to be, due to their bloodline influence and their bloodline magic, they seem to be like usually more charismatic. They have more influence over people. So the best thing is to put them into administrative roles where they can do less harm because their powers are like unpredictable and people do not like them. So they have not much contact with most sorcerers, right? With wizards, yes. The normal guy I would say I think is a wizard, not a sorcerer, right? I think sorcerers should be rarer than wizards always, because I feel like, except for a setting where like basically dragons rule everything and everyone has a dragon's bloodline, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm 1/18th dragon, and then it's like, oh, cool. But yeah, it's like I think they put them into that role. They put them into these roles because they deal less damage that way, right? And witches, I don't know if witches would be scrutinized, but they could, right? Because the problem with witches is always, are they scrutinized because of the outside influence? Or do people think, yeah, wait, yeah, of course they are. Yeah, witches, of course. Witches are definitely not liked because of their use of otherworldly powers to control Aether, compared to Faith. Maybe conflict between witchcraft and the church, because I think the church would absolutely like people with like ulterior motives in the church would absolutely weaponize the knowledge that witches have patrons outside in like outer planes giving them magic to say, oh, look at these guys. They are using magic which is not earth given by the gods, right? Because like, due to the backstory of like the species, like especially the humans and the elves, we know that they know that their god exists, right? They like the first humans on Eziko have met their god. And the elves are become only 50 years old and die of vampirism instantly because they were punished by them, by their god. So yeah, they should definitely like have that, right? Give me 1 second, I can just see something. I'll be back. Quick toilet break. Give me 1 minute. Okay, I'm back. So, back to where we were. So, yeah, I think that is like very, very important with the church, right? And now we need to get into the role of the church in society. I think that is like a very nice bridge to like after social classes, prominent religions. So, what are the prominent religions? Let's do it like this. Prominent religions. I think we should like have one prominent religion usually, maybe a second one, and I think there's like two main ones I want to use. First of all, what I talked about the entire time is the patron deities. This is like the belief of I sadly have this only in German, so I can still talk about this. I've tried to like get into like basically make every Pathfinder god has like a role, what they do, what their abilities are, sanctifications, stuff like that, right? A lot of stuff, domains, stuff like that. I've gotten like into the very, very small part of this, and we have like Alatries, the guardian patron of the elves, and then we have like Saint Amatus, which is like the one of the humans, right? And then we have like the other ones that are like just like the names, and I have not much written about them. We get about like religion we do, I think, next time. I think if tomorrow's stream, tomorrow same time by the way, is like the idea for the stream. If you want to basically if you wanna catch the stream or like the stream dates, get on my Discord. I try to post it every Sunday for the following week what the stream dates are. Tomorrow's stream is a little bit in the balance because I'm not 100% sure if I can make it, but if something changes, I will write it on my Discord. But we should talk about deities there, like what the religions are. And I want to have like two prominent religions. First of all, the patron deities. The belief that every species of Eziko has like someone who's watching over them. Basically, that is like I want to have like a little bit of a monotheism, which defines what everyone has as like a belief, right? If you say, okay, I want to play a war priest, you should have well, most of the species who have that have like a war god, right? The only problem that exists because of this is I like to have also the open religion system. Basically, what I do in Pathfinder is I have like I have a pantheon, and the pantheon has like gods, and you basically believe in all gods and pick one of them as one. I like that if you have like multiple gods, you believe in all of them and have one that you pick specifically, or like have 2 gods or 3 gods worldwide that have like a very broad pantheon, right? If you think about like monotheism nowadays, not like something like a pantheon belief like the Romans or the Greeks had. If you think about monotheism, like, and nowadays a cleric, say we pick like a concept from like modern times, right? A cleric of Christianity, or a cleric of Islam, or a cleric of Judaism, in like a setting like that, could have basically any domain, right? Like I can see a Christian war cleric, like definitely sing the Deus world there. I can see a like Muslim Jesus Christ, I slurred that word. A Muslim cleric of like love, right? Or a Jewish cleric of nature, or a Buddhist nature of peace. Like, I think Buddhism would be the one where I say, okay, you cannot pick war. That does not make a lick of sense, right? But like I like broad pantheons for like monodeities. And if you have like a guardian deity, I think most of the stuff can be stretched to fit why that patron would give you that power. Let's go to Saint Amatus, because that's the one that I have most fleshed out as like the guy who guided humanity through limbo, right? I can see him being a death cleric, of course, like a death god, because he's the personification of what we think as like the Grim Reaper. I can also see him as a life cleric, because he gave his life energy to the humans, right? I can see it as a war cleric because, well, at least like in the most like metaphorical sense, right? Because of the basically he is something that is like the end result of war. I can see him as like an arcane deity because he gave his aether to save humanity, right? There's like so many interpretations. I would do it from a player-to-player basis, but if we want to flesh out the setting, I would need to do restrictions and say, okay, humans cannot be X, because it would not make much sense that a normal human has fights under the elven patron, because, well, a human does not have to do much with elven vampirism and the survival of elven kind, right? Except, for example, again, exceptions, where like the humans are like, oh yeah, the elves reminded me on how to emancipate myself from orcish suppression, right? I could also see them taking an orcish deity because they say, oh, I lived with the orcs for like decades and now I want to have an orcish deity. But yeah, like patron deities is like one of them. And then we have the old gods. And the old gods, for me, I like to have my triads of like my trinities, right? My trinities of gods, because I like the entire Father, Son, Holy Spirit thing. I think that's very cool. I think Gothic did that as well with like Belia, Adanos, and I forgot the last one. Enos, Jesus Christ. Enos, right? So like you have like 3 deities, and these 3 deities work like in like a trinity, right? I like that as well. So the old gods, the patron deities, like we can buy species. I call them species because I don't like to call them races. It's just such stupid arguments. So we call them species. It fits more. And then we have like time, space. So we have like time, space, and nothingness was like the thing. So that's what the orcs believed before. Orcish belief. And then we have one that is the Unity. I don't know if I rename it because of the Fallout reference we get from that, which is like air, water, earth, fire, ether, right? Like if we take Aetherpunk, we need to take the belief, the old-timey belief that Aether is the essence of the gods, while the element of the gods, while water, fire, and earth are like the earthen elements, right? And that is what I think the 3 religions should be. Very, very broad, just for time's sake now. Because I don't want to go like too long today. We're like 3 hours now. And 3 hours of writing is a lot. We got a lot of stuff done. It's crazy, actually. Like with this stuff we wrote today, you could do like an easy first arc of a campaign. Like with like, of course, some improvisation and like characters you need to write, but like with that background story, that's like easily like a lot of sessions you could do. With like a new group or something like that, or like a group that needs to like get to know the characters and stuff like that. That's a lot of stuff. We have gotten fleshed out a lot of stuff today, but I like that. I like the writing. So especially like the interaction and the spitballing between, or like the snowballing between, like, okay, you have this and I have this, and ideas like going back and forth. It's really, really good. Let's finish the city stuff. And then I head off for today. And then tomorrow we go deeper into religion and just so we have like one city, how it looks in like the city. Of course, with like cities 2 and 3 are like a little bit different, but we get to those at some other point. And then like, of course, just so we have like the basics, like the groundwork done, and after the groundwork we can go into detail, right? So what would in like a city like this? The next question was blah, 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 blah. I need to color code stuff now because it gets a bit like education and medicine. Okay, these are short ones. Education is education, basic education for everyone, magically gifted people, or generally gifted people go to colleges, universities, right? That is like obvious. Like basic education system, everyone can read, everyone can talk, everyone can do simple maths, right? Not everyone is a professor, but like, yeah. There's not much to talk about. I think most illiterate people, if we do illiterate people, which I, again, do not like for player characters. I hate illiterate player characters. What the hell is that? I look outside of my window, right? Sorry to like go off topic. It looks like a rainbow, but it's just the red and it goes into the sky. So either someone put down a map marker outside of my window, or there's like some weird shit going on, which is not so fine. Anyways, back to the topic. I don't like illiterate characters. I hate them. I think they just are annoying at some point. Again, illiteracy is a big thing and a big topic for many people in the world. It's still a problem today, right? But if I play a tabletop session and I talk to someone and they cannot read any text, not even common, and all of a sudden it turns into I explain, like a secondary character has to babysit you through text, it becomes a bit exhausting after a while. For 1 or 2 sessions, it's cute. But imagine doing that for like 4 years of campaign, where like the character does not read. It seems to be like a little bit like, oh, okay, all right. Because like also for me, it's like keeping track of that shit is so annoying because now characters are in a library. That one character is useless now. He does not do anything. He's just sitting there, right? Hey, roll a perception. I find some old text. Wow, you cannot read it because you're illiterate. I do not like that for adventurers. For like any other people, I can live with that, but like not for the main characters of the story. Except if that's your big character arc, then like okay, I'm like interested. But yeah, it's just not appealing to me. I don't know. As a character arc again. Okay, and then we have medicine. Medicine. Basic medicine, and alchemy, readily available. frequency of permanent injury is quite low. As long as you can pay for it. Very important. Like, I would think that medicine is so readily available. First of all, because of Pathfinder it is. And second of all, in a setting like this where like everything's magic infused, dude, healing potions are like there. You just can't take them, right? I don't see many people losing limbs except if they cannot afford healing. Or like dying from a stab wound. There's definitely there's hospitals. I think hospitals should be a thing. And there is also emergency troops slash helpers in the city watch, right? I think that is logical that they have like a guy, a medic in the city watch that can like somewhat heal. I think that just makes sense. I don't know why my eye tracking is so ass. I'm so sorry, guys. And now we do one thing that is also very important to this setting, especially. Technology. That is so important because that defines everything. We have trains slash trams, monorails. Maybe we only have monorails. We have golems. I cannot write golems anymore. Golems that do labor and transport. Automatons. We have automatons. Automatons should be... even though we didn't talk much about automatons, but now we have like this new thing that we have, right? Automatons. We have lifts and speakers. Groundworks of telecommunication. It's not that like I don't want to have like phones, but definitely like speakers that like people can project their voice into. I think like basic stuff like that is definitely a thing. Like a line, like someone speaks into a microphone and speakers give it back. I think we have like they have like gotten a system that works with magic that way. And then we have like flying transports. I don't want to have magic circuits everywhere, so flying transports off and onto the metropolis. I think that is also very important. So yeah, that is him. So just so I can go in the direction of my bed because it's getting a little bit late. We have 10:30 and I need to do a little bit of stuff and then need to sleep because I need to work tomorrow. This is what we did. We translated the timeline, talked about stuff. We need to mark a few things still here. And also link a few things. We need also to talk about the Orcish dynasties. Then we have talked about, well, we have like talked about a little bit about the species and reworked a little bit of stuff. We have talked about the mirror belts. The mirror belt, very good idea by Edwin. Edwin was such an MVP today. Thank you, Edwin. Ikasero as well. so good, like really really top. Then we have like defined the mirror belt, and then we have Haven. We have done Haven as like an entire thing from the ground up with like social class and stuff like that. Of course, some of that stuff we need to do like a second workaround once we have established a few more things. But that is how the thing works. I mean, you know it. I know it. It's like when you write something, or when you, especially if you cooperate on writing something, and you get back into like another thing, you realize, oh, that would change this thing a little bit or significantly, and yeah. But regardless of that, that was like a lot of texting. And it's always fun to do that. It's always fun to do art streams. Maybe we do a little bit of creative work tomorrow, where I do a little bit of art, where we define a few looks. For example, I've defined the looks of the orcs. I will go back to the orcs because I have a drawing on them. I have also one on the elves. I imagine the orcs to look more like, I know it's very rough, but to be like a bit more like boar folk. A bit leaning into like the Japanese interpretations of orcs, and have a little bit of like biodiversity between like, or like gender diversity between them. But like the orcs have like the male have flat noses and are like less hairy in the face. Like they don't have a hairy nose. They have like the beard area a little bit more hairy, and the bristles are in general longer, and the females are a little bit more like have an elongated nose, have like shorter teeth, and also have a little bit fluffier ears, but every other quill is like shorter on the body, so they are like a little less quote-unquote hairy. I think stuff like that. The elves, I have like one drawing I need to find, and like stuff like that. We could do a little bit of artwork just so we can imagine stuff better a bit, but yeah, that is that for the time being. I will head off now. Thank you for watching. That was very successful. Thank you for the good input. We will work on this tomorrow again. This was very fun. And I wish you a good night. I don't know if I can rate somebody. Give me 1 second. Maybe I find someone to rate who's funny. Do we have a funny guy on Twitch that I can rate? No. All of my friends are offline. This is sad. So we're not rating. I'm sorry. So, see you around. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.